Don't just come to the class and be like, I don't understand. They hate that. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. For example, if there is this one person in class that always get 5, them always get 5 for everything on exam. No exam no pass and them that get a 5. And that one person get 4 on the exam and everybody else only pass with a 3. Leave it. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Shawna. If you're not new, thank you for coming back. So I recently went to a university orientation with one of my best friends, and while being there, they were basically providing any tips for new students that will allow them to be successful and just be able to make the transition easier. And that kind of inspired me to create like a first year guide for the new babies, because I think y'all need it. So hence this video. I literally wrote the script for this while I was sitting down in the orientation, because I remember what it was like to be shiny and new at university, and Cuba doesn't really give like orientation like that to the new students. So this is your guide for success for first year. Everything that you should know before you start, and you can also utilize them and apply them to every other year of med school, because these are the inside tips, and a lot of people are new in Cuba and don't know anybody to ask or know anybody who's ahead of them yet who would be able to provide these little inside trader tips for y'all. So I'm gonna give them to you. You're welcome. First year is make it or break it for med school, and a lot of people either fail, they drop out, or they end up repeating the year, and it's just a sad fate. I'm not shaming a soul, because as if you would have binged a lot of my other videos as relates to Cuba, you find out that I repeated first year for med school, and honestly it was hard. It's really hard to be alone and not really have that support system, or not know how to adequately study or anything like that, and not know what you need to change and correct. Because if we're being honest, when you're finished pre-med and Spanish, that is a completely different dynamic than when you start in med school. Pre-med and Spanish is chill. It's a very chill environment. Like, you can't fail in pre-med and Spanish unless you just aren't doing anything, and unless you're not even doing the bare minimum, because those teachers don't want to fail you. Med, first year med, all the heat comes down on you. It is very rapid. It's a very rapid paced environment. There's nobody there that's holding your hand unless you have somebody looking out for you. You can't really rely on the teachers or the lecturers like that. You have to be accountable for yourself. So these tips help you to basically make that transition easier. And I'm being honest with you, it's not the same. So let's get into the first one. My first tip for you is that the P1 is your best friend. You don't know what a P1 is. What is a P1? A P1 is basically a content breakdown of every topic that you're going to be doing throughout the semester. Usually the teachers give you a P1. If not, you're supposed to go to the biblioteca, the library, at school, and you'll get some folders. In those folders will basically be some of the content information for the year. The P1 should be in there. If it's not in there, then you can ask your teacher for it. But basically, it tells you every single topic that you're going to be covering throughout the semester. Why is the P1 important? Why is this relevant? Because yes, you will get PowerPoints, yes, you will get lectures, but not everything will be given in those lectures and will be given in those PowerPoints. What do I mean? There are topics that are expected to be covered throughout the year or throughout the semester that will be listed on the P1 that it will not be given in a lecture. You're not in high school anymore. So it's not everything everything won't be taught in class, and you can't complain and be like, oh, but we didn't get that seminar, oh, but we didn't get that conference or that lecture or anything. They don't care. They gave you a P1. They're gonna tell you that you're a university student. It was on you to be studying and reading, and they're not gonna be spoon feeding anything at all to you. It's up to you. It's your responsibility to be accountable and to make sure that you are prepared. I didn't know what a P1 was until third year, and even in third year I remember doing, like, we were prepping for exams and my friends were like, oh, you read this, you read that, and I'm like, when I get all of them something here from we at our balls, and they're like, it's on the P1. I was like, what is the P1? And everybody was looking at me like, how do you not know what a P1 is? No one told me. I'm telling you, this is what a P1 is. This is why the P1 is important, because there were questions that came on the exam that we didn't get conferences on them. We didn't get lectures on them, but them dep on the exam though, because they were on the P1 and it was up to you to read and make sure that you knew that topic. You were supposed to read independently. I don't believe them some there, but now I have to. So that is why the P1 is important. It is your bread and butter. It might not be that deep as it relates to first and second year, but third year up, the P1 is your best friend. So make sure you get familiar with a P1. It also helps it to make it easier when you're studying for your final exam, because the P1 would have a list of all of the topics that you're supposed to cover, as I already mentioned. Once you've studied and gathered all of that, at least you can tick them off one by one to know what you cover already. Following from that, we're going into the second tip. I would recommend that you collect all of your resumes and you collect all of the PowerPoints at the beginning of the semester. You're not gonna get it from school, because the resumes are summaries. So it's basically summarized content of all of the information that would be in the books based off of topics and topics. You don't get them from school because it's not really school. It's not school given content. Past students who have already been through med and were studying for their exam, they created summaries and they distributed them over the years to different students, and we kind of just pass them down. You have the Randy resumes, and that covers you from, I think from first year until third year. Randy got you. And then there's some other resumes that are not Randy, I don't remember the other guy's name, for fourth year up. It's easier to study from the resumes, but also additionally, while studying from the resumes, you need to also be studying from a textbook, because a lot of the times the answer that they're going for is going from the textbook, and sometimes the resume informations are wrong. So you need to make sure that you study through both, just so that you can have the right information. It's just that the summary will be more of a guide. It will condense it so that you're not reading a bunch of unnecessary information in the textbook, because there's a lot. It's a lot, and it's thick and it's big and it's heavy. So make sure you use the summaries properly. Why I say to get them at the beginning of the semester is because it makes it easier when you're in your lectures or you're in conferences and the teacher is talking and telling you what the important points are. You can already locate that information on the resume and mark it so that you know to focus on this, because again, there are unnecessary points on the different resumes that would just help it and make things way easier for you, if we're being honest. The PowerPoints, you could get them at the start of the semester. You could get them from other students. All of them won't usually be at the library one time for you to just collect all of them, but sometimes they will be, so you can go to the library at the beginning of the semester and ask the librarian for them. I would say get them from past students, but also make sure to get the ones that are set or put by the teacher in the library, because some of the past student ones might be out of date and might not have the same information as the new ones. Next point, do clase talleres. You don't know what a clase taller is. A clase taller is basically a practical class. So a clase taller, basically, you do the conference, you get your conferencia, which is the Spanish word for what them call lectures. You get your conferencia first. The next thing that you're going to be doing is the clase taller. And then lastly, you do the seminary, which is the test. So lecture, practical class where you can ask questions and you do the exercises and everything, and then you can have a debate or any form of discussions or any questions that you might want to ask. That's what happens in the class year. And then you have a seminary the week after, which is the the test or your weekly test to basically conclude that topic so that you can move on to something else. Why are class tailleurs important? The reason that we're saying to do class tailleurs, and I'm saying we because I actually asked my friends who are also ahead of me and with me what they would recommend to create this list. Class tailler questions repeat a lot of the time. Sometimes the same questions that they ask you or exercises that you do for class tailler, they give them to you, by the way, the exercises, and you're supposed to complete them. Usually they take one of those questions and that comes as a weekly test. They don't tell you which one, so you're supposed to just understand all of them. Or the class tailler questions come back on final exam randomly they come back, and that's why it's important. So it helps you to grasp the information quicker and easier, and to be prepared by the time the end of year comes and the end of the semester comes and it's time for you to get exam. Class attires are very important, especially for my students that are going to be doing first year and second year med. Third year, fourth year, fifth year, we do them, but it's more like an information kind of based thing for us, because we don't really get exercises like how the exercises are designated for first and second year. But class attires, during those times, we sit down, we talk to our lecturer, we ask them any questions and they explain it and whatever. We don't really get class attires like that from third year up. It's more of a discussion thing, and any additional information that the teacher has to teach you, that's that. But first and second year, class attire is your bread and butter. That's the time when you come with questions and ask your teachers anything that you need to clarify. That's the period that you ask that, because you can't come on seminar day or the test day and ask them. They're not going to answer you unless it's after the fact that you need to ask something about a test. But class attire, don't just come to the class and be like, I don't understand. They hate that. They hate that. Make sure that you did the class attire, and whatever question or whatever you don't understand based off of the topic, you raise your hand and you say, Profe, no entiendo, I don't understand, and you give them whatever it is that you need them to break down for till they say, oh, please explain this to me. Gracias. And then you move on. Class attire, bread and butter. Do them, they help. And at the very least, if you don't do the questions, but one of your friends did the question them, this is an inside tip that I did sometimes. If you never feel like doing the question them, getting tired, that is a lot. It's usually like 7 or 13 exercises for you to do, and not those are like sections. It's not like individual questions. Like there's A, B, and C under every single one of them questions here. If you didn't do it but your friend did it, take a picture of it before the class starts, so that when the teacher picks on you, because usually they pick on you randomly, sometimes they'll ask you to volunteer, but most times people don't be putting up their hands unless they actually did it and complete everything. And then after, when that person put up their hand too much time, just stop calling them. They will call your name. Make sure that you have something to say and it correct, because they will shame you. So if you didn't do it, make sure that you ask your friend who did do it to let you take the picture. Inside tip. My next tip, ask for past papers. It doesn't matter where, it don't have to be from the same school, but if it is from the same school and you manage to get past papers, a lot of the times the questions repeat. And that's why past paper for exams are important. At the very least, if the questions don't repeat, past papers are important, because you can look at them and get an idea on how the questions are structured. You can see if you could answer them and if you're ready for exam or not. If you've seen any of the things that I'm asking for before in your life, if you have not, you can go back and review and study adequately for exam. Many times I've been studying and I skip over a topic because I'm like, that's not important. But when you look and go through the past paper, it's a simple detail. And you're like, why are they asking this? But it's stuff like that they ask on the exam. They're not gonna ask the typical what they know, like, okay, she definitely studied this. They're gonna be like, oh, this is important, but then go skip over this because it's just a simple detail. Enough time when I'm like, oh, I don't need to know that, that's simple. Those are always the questions that come up on that exam and trip you up. I promise you. The ones that you skip over and you're like, this is not relevant. Or the topics that you're able to read and focus on, and you're like, yeah, this is definitely coming on exam. Most of the times, those things are coming as the essay question or the desarrollo. The ones that you're like, this is not important, those are coming as multiple choice. And if you fail 3 questions out of the multiple choice, you fail the entire section. So it's important. Don't be like me. It is important, and I'm trying to help you, okay? Your next point, I'm gonna put these 2 in one. Study in groups. And this doesn't even have to be like you have to physically go and study groups, because I always say study in groups, but I personally never get around to it because I'm the type of person that be studying up until the night before the exam. So it's beneficial to study in groups if you're somebody who doesn't study from like the week before and you have to link up with somebody just to bounce off ideas or whatever. It helps. However, studying groups doesn't have to only look like, all right, I have to meet up with this person to study just so that we can interact. It can also look like you're studying, you have questions, and you text your friend on WhatsApp and be like, hey, can you explain this to me? And they send like a voice note explaining it to you. Or you ask each other questions, because that's something that I do in exam time. I'll text if we are studying something and I'm like, oh, this seems relevant. I'll text it to my friends to see if they know the answer. Like, So you might read a little details that you could be reading or whatever. You just invent a question and you send it to them, including the information that you just learned. They'll answer you. If they get it wrong, then you give the answer. And I promise you, especially me, I always do that with my friends, and I always encourage them to send the questions to me, even if I can't answer, because at that point I'm gonna ask, okay, well, tell me the answer. And then when they tell it to me, because I never know it, I will never forget it again. And when I see it on exam, I will know to answer that question correctly because I didn't know it the first time. It helps so much. It's a little thing, but I appreciate it so much whenever my friends do that and they text me the questions and bombard me with questions. I never yet cuss. They'll cuss me like, how you don't know this? I don't care. Just keep asking me. I will know it by exam, I promise. Additionally, I would like to implore you to develop a study method that works for you. It's not like high school anymore. You can't cram everything like how you could before the semester. You could cram for seminars, which are just weekly tests and things, because that's just one simple topic that you would have covered, and it's easier for you to do it. Final exam have 7 questions, 7 sections, and within those sections you have this array of essay questions, and that comes with an A, a B, and a C, and they could be anatomy, histology, and embryology, or anatomy, histology, and physiology. Like, so you literally have to study so broad and know all of this information. You can't cram. So develop a study method that works for you. If that's studying for exam from like a month before or 2 weeks before, 2 weeks before is the minimum. 2 weeks before is the minimum, and that's cramming that you can start studying for exam. The minimum that you can start studying for exam, I am telling you. Sometimes cramming does not work. Some people have photographic memory and them can just read one time, and them that I have friends that can stay up 2 nights before exam and then read every single thing under the sun, all of the contents. They don't sleep, and by the time they go in that exam and sit, they come up with 4s and 5s. Do not do it if you know that don't work for you. I have been there. It never work. Don't do it. Don't do it. My mom says this all the time. There are people who it is easier for them to learn it. Don't tell them nothing. Them just have to read it one time and that's them. If you know that that is not you, there is nothing wrong with the fact that that's not you. You just have to study 5 times harder, and you just have to read it over more 5 times until you get it. But you will get it. Do not fool yourself into thinking that you can do what other people do. I've been there. You can't do it. If we're being honest, you can't do it, and that's okay. Those people have life easy. Simple something and them get 4 and 5. If you have to fight for your 3, which is a pass, if you have to be fighting for your 3, do the work to make sure that you can fight for your 3. I promise you, because that 2 is so easy to get over there, and that 2 is a fail. Okay, so develop a study method that works for you. I want to talk about my next point. That is, listen to these words: ordinario, extraordinario, mundial, and a recorrido. We're gonna start with ordinario. Now in Cuba, you get 3 chances at sitting your final exam. The first chance is called an ordinario. The ordinario has the most people sitting exam on that day, and I'm going to explain why I never say everybody sits on ordinary day. I'll explain that after, but ordinario has the most amount of people that will be there on exam day. Extraordinario comes after ordinario. If the people who don't pass on ordinario day, they go to extraordinario. Usually it's about 5 days, depends. In first and second year, usually them take a week and then grades come out. Third year, especially if your class is small, you can get grades within like 2 days and going up, like third year up. The smaller your class, the quicker you get back in grades. But we're dealing with first and second year because these are tips for first year. Sorry, I digress. The people who didn't pass for ordinario, they go to extraordinario. Extraordinario is held a week after ordinario, so they give you that extra week to study because you should have already prepped majority. At least 75% of you should have been ready for ordinario. And then now that extra week is to cover the 25% that you didn't cover, which is why you never passed ordinario, and now you're at extra. Extraordinary is the second sitting. If you never pass extraordinario, you're going to mundial. Mundial is not the worst thing that can happen in the world, as somebody who's been to Mundial. But as also somebody who's never passed a Mundial, you don't want to go Mundial. If you could avoid Mundial, that's the best thing ever. Mundial is usually held in August. So if you didn't pass your extraordinario, you have to wait until after when you go off on vacation, summer vacation, and then you have to come up back to school early in August to sit your Mundial. And it's a lot of pressure and it's a lot of fear and it's everything because you don't know what's coming back on that paper. And it's your last chance. And that's a very scary situation to be in. Because if you don't pass Mundial, then you have to repeat the year. And nobody wants to be in that situation. I promise you, it sucks. Being as somebody who's been there, it absolutely sucks. And if you could avoid it, please avoid it. Please. So those are those 3 words. The last word that I mentioned to you guys was recorrido. Your recorrido is basically your track record for the entire semester. So your recorrido would be made up of your seminary grades or your weekly tests that you will have. Because remember I told you, you have your conference, which is your lecture. You have a class here the following week, which is basically, it's not graded at all. That's the time when you would exchange with your teacher, and if you need an explanation or anything like that, then that's the time to do it. And then the week after that, you would have a seminar, which is your weekly test, which you always get on a topic, right? Always get on a topic. That is graded. That can be written, and it will also be oral for a part, for at least for the first 2 years, right? If you get 15 seminaria for the semester and you fail 10 of them, you can lose your derecho. Derecho means right in Spanish. You can lose your right to sit your ordinary exam. So you can lose the right to your first sitting on your exam. And that's why I said that not everybody, well, that's why I said that most people sit exam on ordinary day. That's the day you're going to see the most amount of people at exam, on that day, the first sitting. How you lose your derecho recorrido? How do you lose your derecho? By having a poor recorrido. So basically, as I said, if you have a certain amount of tests for the year and you fail majority of them, your recorrido is bad. The teacher will not send your name up for you to sit your first exam. Some teachers, even though your recorrido is bad, they will still send your name. They don't believe in taking away the derecho. It kind of backwards, because it's like, if you're doing poor throughout the semester, shouldn't you need as many chances as you can get for pass? But at the same time, they don't care. They don't care. It's backwards. And as I said, some teachers don't take your record, don't take your derecho away. You won't always be guaranteed that you have nice teachers like that. And sometimes teachers nice, but they still take it anyways. I've had both. I've never had my recorrido taken away, but I've had teachers where other people in the class and them take with the people them recorrido, or not recorrido, them take with the people them derecho to sit ordinario. You don't want that. You want as many chances to your exam as you can get. So make sure that you have a good recorrido throughout the semester. Also, I think I need to talk about the FAQS. You could have the best recorrido in the land. You could have the best recorrido in the land. You have 5s for every single test and thing. Oh, I should talk about as well. If you have the best recorrido in the land and you have 5s for every single test, and your teachers know you, and you always volunteer, and your orals are always great, and you have 5s in your mid-semester like exam as well, when you get to ordinary, that exam room, you can convalidate, and then you won't even have to sit your exam. You won't know until the day, so you would already been studying up for your exam. But they might call your name in that auditorium and say, this person has been convalidated, and then the entire class claps you, the entire auditorium claps you, that you don't have to sit exam. And then you go up in front of everybody and you sign your exam paper and then write 5 beside, and you get to leave, and then everybody just stress out and have to do the exam after. If that's you, buena vida, felicidades, congratulations, you're a brilliant person. That's never been me. I would love it to be me, but I'm not consistent like that. So I started off by saying you could have the best recorrido, like all 4s and like 5s, or and maybe like 1 3, and you don't have any problem and you still have your derecho. If you don't pass your exam, that's if you didn't get convalidated and you still have to sit your exam and you don't pass all 3 exam, then your recorrido can't save you. You still have to repeat the year. They don't care. because I've been there. Had good record and everything, but just didn't pass my exams, and that was me. That was what happened in first year, because I wasn't failing anything except my exams. So keep that in mind. That being said, if you have failed your exam, go and review your paper. Go and review your paper. Usually once grades are out, you can review your paper maybe like the next day or 2 days after. Go look at your paper. Go see where you went wrong. Unless you know absolutely like what happened and what you failed in, which I've been in that position where I know what I put, and then we come out to exam and I'm talking to people and what they put completely different from what me put, and I'm able to know like, all right, if you fail 3 sections on the exam paper of 7 papers, you failed. So like, unless you can identify like, all right, I didn't put that, that's how many questions on the paper I didn't pass, then maybe you would need to go look. But the reason I say that it is important for you to go and review your paper is because sometimes the questions repeat. So you might have, and most of the times it's like multiple choice questions, but the multiple choice questions, a lot of the times it's how people fail. It's not the desarrollo or the essay questions. It's the multiple choice things that trip people up. Sometimes there's also trick questions on the paper. So this is for people in third year. You swear, sir, you put the right answer, because you know, say you study, and what you study come back on that paper. And you were sitting in your exam and you started to read the question and you got excited and immediately put verdadero or falso, which is true or false, for the multiple choice section, because you see the first part and you know you studied that, so of course this looking good, you just put true, you just put false. But when you go for review your paper and see why you fail, and you say para profe, I put true, that's true, and the teacher start read the question aloud to you and said, the question went, this is not question, well, this is not the question that's gonna be on the paper, but because I can't think of one right now. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and that's all, that's what you read, that's what you saw, and you immediately put yes. But when the teacher reading out the question said, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell and it only acts in summer. Only underlined. Well, I'm not gonna underline it for the exam, but yeah, only. And you're like, no. And the teacher's like, then why did you put true? Because you read the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. You never finished read after that to see them say in a summer only. And that trick question is how you failed. And there will be 3 of them in the section, and all 3 of them you got excited for because you read that and you know the answer and you immediately put what you think the answer is, but you never finished read. And then those trick questions caused you to fail that entire section, and that continued in 2 more other sections. And maybe that section was just the one thing that you needed. If you had passed that section only and you knew the answer anyway, you'd have passed your exam. Have I been there? I've been to review my paper where that same trick question happened to me, and I needed 1 point for pass my exam. That 1 point, because that was a good exam for me. 1 point for pass the exam. And all the look my profile look for give me, him can't give me, come and mess up the trick question them. I'm gonna know the answer. But I got excited and didn't finish reading. It happened to one of my friends as well. And she went to Mundial. And she didn't know. And literally, I remember it happening to her. And she didn't understand why she didn't pass. And I said to her, well, tell me where you put. And she was discussing everything. And she would have been like, oh, I put false. And I was like, it's true. And she said, no, like the question said this. I'm like, that's not what the question said. You never finished read. Because I went to look at my paper and that was one of the 3 questions that got me. And when I go look on the paper, the prophet tell me that it's XYZ. And that same trick question repeated on the paper that the both of us had. Because they know that a lot of people failed that question. So them carry it back. So when I saw it now on extra, I knew to continue reading for make sure someone put the correct answer. She didn't put it. And when she went to review her paper, the same thing woman said. It's the same thing that happened. Luckily and thankfully she passed Mondial. Shout out to her. Because I'm so glad she's still in class with me. But that's just to say, 1, read carefully. 2, always go review your paper because you never know what it could be. Because she swore that she killed that exam, and it was the same thing with me for ordinary. I swore that I killed my ordinary paper. Come here, say, oh, there's no, I should still pass. Like, even if I messed up one of the essays or the disarray, I should still pass. Like, I'm so confident about my multiple choice questions, only to find out it's a trick question. Them trip me up. Additionally, if you know that you passed by the skin of your teeth, let's go. In a case where, for example, if there is this one person in class that always get 5, them always get 5 for everything on exam, no exam to pass, and them that get a 5, and that one person get 4 on the exam, and everybody else only pass with a 3, leave it. And you are one of the people that passed with a 3, but you feel like you should have gotten a 4, you should have gotten a 5, leave it. Leave it. Know when to let it go, know when to be humble and let it go, because in the same breath as how reviewing people can end up causing you to pass if you need just 1 point and they can find it, or it might have been marked wrong by a teacher or something, that same breath, if them see something marked incorrectly and it's supposed to be wrong and they mark it right, they must take a point for you. It happened to me already, where I went to review my paper because I needed like 1 point to pass, and she saw that somebody marked something right when it should have been wrong, and she took 1 point. It happens all the time. So you don't need to review paper, humble yourself, let it go. You can increase your grade if you like. So for example, if you get a 3 and you feel like, oh, you want to try for the 4 or the 5 because you weren't that prepared, then you can go and increase your grade. That one is without risk, because if you do extraordinary, so if you get like a 3 on ordinary or a 4, because there have been people that got a 4 before and were like, no, them want a 5, and you go and you do extraordinary, if you get about the same grade, your grade doesn't change. If you get a grade higher, that's when your grade changes. If you get a 2, then your grade won't change. They won't carry it from the 3 to the 2, no. So in that sense, then you can. Lastly, the last piece of advice that everybody was saying to tell you guys is to try and learn med in both English and in Spanish. Unless you are going to migrate to Spain from whichever country you are and just try and get a job there, right, or a school in Cuba, or you are going back to a country where you don't have to redo your internship here, you can just hit the ball running being a doctor, and you don't have an exam for SITs. But for my Jamaicans that are watching this, you have exam for SITs. Once you graduate, you have a couple months of observership, and then you have a year of internship again for doing in Jamaica before you can do your exams to be a licensed doctor, like fully. It's not just Jamaicans, it's not just Cubans as well. I think the China doctors have to do the same thing. Once you study outside or you have to do that. It will benefit you to study in English as well as in Spanish. It will make the transition easier for you, and you won't have to study as hard when you're back and need to, as I say, hit the ball running, get the ball running. So everybody was saying to tell you guys that, and don't wait, because it is a lot of content. So the earlier you could do that, the better that it will be for you. And in conclusion, I have a video on my channel that literally breaks down everything that you do in first year. It's coupled with what you do in pre-med and Spanish, so you can skip ahead to when I start speaking about first year. And if you are curious as to what topics and everything and what all of that entails, what subjects you do in first year, I'm gonna link it above. Go watch it. Before you leave, hit the like button. Before you click out of this video, please hit the like button. If you're new here and you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. Join this family. I'm so close to 1,000, guys. Please, like, bully your friends to come subscribe so we can hit 1,000, please. Like, that would be really, really nice. If you know somebody who would like to study in Cuba and are studying, or them just finished pre-med and Spanish and them about to start first year, or even if they're not studying in Cuba but they're about to start first year and they need some life tips that will make things easier for them, send this video to them. If you're a parent watching this and your child over there in Cuba and they're in pre-med right now, send this video to them, tell them to make sure so them like the video. It helps the algorithm to reach more people. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.